Hey everybody, it's Thursday.
And welcome to this week's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily, and we are really looking forward to this evening because this is going to be part of our transition, I guess, from ice to open water. And I
Hey
hate
Matt.
to even admit that, right? Because I personally am not done with ice season, but I also recognize there are people who never had an ice season. So I will still consider myself lucky and just live with my memories. But ultimately, we are going to be moving on. And it's funny how much these episodes help us transition and do that.
Yeah, you guys are a great help in the transition. It's really we all, you guys all experience it. It's hard. You have things you want to try and you have places you want to go and it never seems to be long enough even if it is a good winter, never seems to be long enough. But we have it's cool when you can have things that go with you. We talk a lot about transitioning our stuff and um so we're getting the boat out. We're gonna have to start swapping our things over and airing things out and getting dryer seats put in them and yeah, all kinds of stuff.
And it is kind of funny because you're talking about things that go from season to season. And I always want my ice fishing baits to flow with me right into open water. And in some cases they do, the panfish, they like some of that stuff. But the first place we go was the river. And so we transitioned from like ice fishing baits to like blade baits and big stuff for walleye. So that's going to be a whole bunch of fun. But before we even get that far, the other thing that we do for the transition in our season is actually maple syruping. So I know Crappie Junction, we usually bring you fishing content, but during this season, we've also brought you a little bit of the syruping and the sapping, because to be honest, I think last Thursday we had a mini episode or something. I don't know what you'd call that, right? We walked around, kind of showed you some of our sapping in the bags and how we're boiling it down. My dad was here last week, and actually today is his birthday, so happy birthday to
Happy
him.
birthday, Dad.
But I think it's been a fun season, and you're right. Sometimes as we're sitting and boiling all the sap, it is the time to be transitioning to open water in the boat. So here we go.
Yeah, normally this is a great activity to do in that transition because ice is crappy. The rivers haven't opened up yet. Lakes aren't opened up yet. So we're in that transition, and what better way to spend that transition than watching water boil, right? The most exciting thing in the world. But no, it's super fun. I really like it. It's a really good way to come home from work. I'm a natural resource person, but most of my being in water, most of my field season is during the summer and open water months. So it's a lot of sitting at a desk and number crunching during the wintertime. So it's nice to have an activity in addition to fishing to keep being able to go outside and keep active and stuff. So it's a really fun time. Plus it's fun to give that, have a little bit for ourselves and fun to give some away too. So it's pretty fun. Plus it's kind of a community too, like fishing. We were just over at our neighbors. They have this giant like greenhouse sap shack thing with a bunch of windows and vents and just giant. It's crazy. Yeah. But you were talking about baits, so you got me sidetracked with sapping. I just got the new Lakewood giant like plastics holder, like the large money bag.
What was that?
Today we got them. I'm so excited.
In a box, or you ordered it?
In a box.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, this is new news to me, apparently.
Hey, Eric.
Anyways, we don't have an ice fishing report because the ice is melting. So we usually like to bring you a fishing report. So we don't have water temps. We don't have fish patterns. We don't have any of those things. And that's okay because that is what happens this time.
Don't drive your car on the ice now.
There is no ice in a lot of places. And so that is one thing I was actually going to point out is I know that there are a lot of places, resorts and stuff that have been hurting from the crappy ice season. And I feel for them, and go and support those places and take those trips and go to the bars and the restaurants and all of that stuff. But I did also see that there was a resort that was pushing for that they had 2 inches of ice and $100 off their bookings. And so it is funny to, joke joke about don't drive your ice on this time of the season, but we have seen people, last ice try to push the limits, whether that's on foot or not. And, there's so much open water to come. And so one of the things I will also point to is if you follow anything about Ryan Salemi and the Ice Junkies, he had posted some pictures today with some really nice crappies. And I think he's talking about kayaks coming up. But he also said that living on a lake, it was amazing because he felt like he watched the ice melt in a day and a half, is what he said, a day and a half. Now, I don't know how much he was joking or if that was real or the facts or anything behind it, right? I'm not here to debate that, but I'm saying that it does feel that fast. And the shorelines went. And we've been having a lot of wind. And I think people forget how much the wind deteriorates and impacts that ice. So if you are in a place where there is still ice up to the shorelines, be super careful because it changes super fast this time of the season. And when it gets honeycombed, you never know where those bad spots are. But otherwise, for the rest of us, I think we are going to be looking towards open water, and we're excited. So we could sit here and talk all night, but we got to bring our guest in. So we are excited for that. This is Matt. You're kind of new to us, so welcome to the show, and thanks so much for being here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we are just getting to meet you, and that is awesome. But I think that there are some people at home that are also just getting to meet you. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm a fishing content creator from upstate New York. My channel on YouTube is called The Awakening Angler. My wife and I have been doing it now. This is the start of our 5th year. So it's been exciting. Josh and I are pro staffers for JT Rods, which is how this came to be tonight. So, like I say, I'm a kid from upstate New York. Although I don't really care about talking about fishing now. You got me thinking about maple syrup and pancakes or something, because if I could have a 55-gallon drum of maple syrup in my house, I would. It's never not in the house. So we can fish anytime. Let's talk about syrup. I am completely down with that. And I can give you guys a fishing report. That's what I do every day on YouTube. Now that I'm back in season, I post content daily, sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. And what I will say is that you just talked about, and I listened to your opening about this really wonky, weather we've had this winter. And I'm in upstate New York, but I'm only an hour from the Canadian border, and we have Lake Ontario is right there, and then you go up into the St. Lawrence Seaway. But for us, we have in New York, we have walleye season still open until March 15th. So this is actually only the 2nd year in my life that I've ever closed out the season in my boat on my lake, as opposed to being on the ice. So it's great. And it helps every month when you make your boat payment, because you're still using it. Like if you lived in our area right now and you were making a snowmobile payment right now, you'd be like, boy, I might have rode it for a week or 2 this year. Like you could have, but you had to go a long way up into the Adirondack Mountains, 4 or 5 hours from where I live. Same with the guys that really wanted to scratch that itch to ice fish this year. You had to really travel because there was no good ice for any amount of time here where I live.
And so we were talking about that a little bit before the show. You are otherwise an ice angler. You like to be out there and do ice fishing. And so how did you cope without really having an ice season?
My boat, like I say, and we talked beforehand, and you're right. As of right now, I have been in my boat in my lake. My home lake is Oneida Lake. It's the largest inland lake in New York State. It's 6 miles long, 8 miles wide. It's a big body of water. I've been in it now in my boat for 12 consecutive months. So by the time next winter rolls around, and who knows what we'll have, but like I say, I'm fortunate in a lot of ways that I live on the water. But even if you don't, there was 4 other boats that I saw out there today. That's just on my end. Like I can't see the whole lake, but it's incredible. And so the pattern is we have a hatchery on our lake as well. And I have been for the last 3 days trolling in front of the mouth of the creek that feeds the hatchery, and I've yet to see a fish. I've yet to have a bite in there. I'm live scoping as I'm trolling, so I'm looking the whole time. Got my side scan on 200 feet, and they're not there yet. And I haven't found them out off the first drop off yet either. So it feels like we're a month ahead of schedule, but I keep waiting. Like any moment they can be there. It's only 36 degrees, but the creek water is 40. So I'm waiting for a pre-spawn bite that I've never had before from the boat. We always look as New Yorkers, we always look to you guys in the Midwest and go, oh, you're lucky you get to fish the spawning runs and stuff like that. We don't have any of that. It's closed from March 15th to May 1st.
Yeah, and there's a few of the Midwest states that are like that also. Wisconsin, we're pretty fortunate with having Green Bay right there. We have the Mississippi, and we have the St. Croix. So all those are highly productive, and they're border waters.
Right.
So it is a good time. I think for the most part, people are pretty respectful. I know we had a little bit of a controversy here. Oh, it's probably 5-6 years ago now, where our bag limit went down, and it kind of, ruffled some feathers, and it kind of went away, and everybody's adjusted to that now. So yeah, it is a fun time. It's a good way to spend the spring, especially for people that are predominantly panfish anglers. We really like to go learn walleye fishing. We don't do it all the time, so we try every year to spend a few weeks learning new things and staying off of the panfish beds.
Yeah. I it's funny. We have an incredible panfish population in my lake. Crappies, although I couldn't tell you where they go after they come out of the creek when they spawn, and it's a big lake. So I wouldn't even begin to know where to look. But one thing panfish related that we do have is we have an incredible pumpkin seed fishery. Those big bright orange, I always call them a sunfish until I did an on the water live interview with the guy that was doing the creel census for our New York State. It's called DEC, the Conservation Department. And he goes, well, that's not a sunfish, that's a pumpkin seed. And I'm like, seriously, my whole life I've been calling it the wrong name, but it's bright orange. It looks like a sun, and so, but I mean, they're 9-10 inches, and they'll hit a half-ounce blade bait or a jigging wrap when you're snap jigging for walleyes, and you'll know because they hit it harder and faster than a walleye does. You know instantly. You're like, what is going on here? And it's sideways and it's incredible. But I couldn't tell you how to go target them. But there are some days you'll catch a dozen of them, and they're just enormous. Like they're that big around and bright orange. It's crazy. So, but it's cool.
It is really funny how much like a big bluegill or like what you're saying, these larger panfish are predators. And so when you're saying like a blade bait, I mean, that is like a little bit surprising, but it does seem to come in clumps, like what you're saying. Like when you find this bite is on, it is on. And so, all of these beautiful pumpkin seeds, I do think that they are, I don't know, there's something to what you're saying. They're a crazy bite. And like you were showing, sideways everything, but that is how they fight, is like your line will just start going one of every which ways. And so, it is fun to kind of reel them in. But I'm also laughing over here because Josh and I just, within the last month, happened to run into state records. And I think it was in relation because Minnesota is like changing something about their records. And so that more people can get in on that. And so look that up because it's kind of a fun thing if you're in Minnesota. But here in Wisconsin, it made us look up what some of our records are. And the state record pumpkin seed is like, I don't know, like 10 inches. And I mean, like, yes, like that is a beautiful, great pumpkin seed. But when you're saying like these fish, they do get that big. And I think
Oh
it's one of
yeah.
those records in Wisconsin that like somebody could almost break like coming up here.
Well, and pumpkin seeds, like if people aren't familiar with them, they're the ones like you were saying that are bright orange, and a lot of times they'll have that really electric blue striping on them.
Yes. Oh,
They're a very distinct fish, one of probably the most beautiful fish in freshwater, but they are much like something like a brook trout or something where 10 inches is ginormous. Like that is a huge pumpkin seed. Like they don't, it's not like a bluegill. Like bluegills, like a huge bluegill is like 12 inches, 11 inches.
right.
Like 9 or 10 inches, even 9 inches is considered like a trophy of a pumpkin seed. So like if you run into those, like make sure you take care of them and take your pictures and get them back in, because those are some big old fish.
I love them, like I say, and my photo albums and stuff and on my social media is full of them. And I've done whole videos just on them, just piecing together all of those clips that you think it's a walleye and it comes up and it's bright orange, and in measuring them, like just laying them down on a board and measuring them doesn't do them justice, because they might be that thick and they're that tall, and like I've always wanted to have some sort of three-dimensional way to measure them all at once and get like a cubic inch measurement of them to give them their due, because like they'll come up and they have foreheads, they get so big, their little head comes up and all of a sudden it goes like this,
Yeah.
and it's a big bump, it's like a forehead, and we get them like that all the time, and it's just an add-on, it's just one of those things out there. Like you can go to our lake on that big flat on my end, and every time you set the hook, could be a walleye, could be a smallmouth, we have some giant sheep's head in this lake, big, and a couple other things that you never know. Like there's carp and cats and that kind of stuff, but those sunfish are one of those things. You set the hook and you're never quite sure what it is. We don't really have many northerns, but we got a bunch of pickerel. Somewhat annoying if you try to go fish the weed beds at all, but it's
Well,
all right.
okay, and I know that this is like not what you imagine when we talk about it all, but a shout out to some of what people refer to as trash fish sometimes, and I hate that term because you mentioned like catfish and carp and the drum, but gosh, who was it in the MLF? They came to fish Winnebago and they were talking about this.
Ike and Nelly.
Oh yeah, and because what he did is took like a whole day at the end and went and fished drum, and the fun thing about that is because they do get big, and so like in the Winnebago system,
Big.
gosh, I've seen some decent ones, so I imagine they get way better than that. But if you're looking for a really fun day out, especially with kids, like you can throw out any bait in the world on any hook in the world in most any location on that system in the world, and you have a chance at a really fun fight. So, when you mention that, just shout out to some of those fish because that helps make it a great day.
It's funny. So sheephead are another thing for me. I had a guy get all upset with me on my channel because I was joking about make sheep's head great again, and but the simple fact is that on jigging tackle, and I've had those big sheepies, they'll absolutely woof a blade bait. I mean, without hesitation. I've had them take swim baits. I've had them take jigging wraps. Certainly, if you have any live bait offering down there, you're a prime culprit. But I don't fish bait. I'm fishing. I'm power fishing walleyes, and I'm power jigging with bucktails, and you name it. And these sheepies will just throttle it, and you come up and set the hook now. So in my lake, a really big walleye is 25 inches. There's never, as far as it's ever been recorded, there's never been a 30-incher on our lake. And I've set the hook in an awful lot of what turned out to be sheep's head, where you're like, come on, this is the one, this is that 30. And it comes up and it's doing this with those big fins. And you're like, but it was still an awesome fight. And it's two-handed because they're like you'll have to use the other hand for leverage. We're JT guys. I've had my 7.3 black rain doubled right over on a sheep's head. They're no joke. And this one guy's like, well, you can't eat them, so I don't know why you like them. I don't eat many fish to begin with. So for me, 99% of it is all catch and release for me. So I don't care what the table fare is on them whatsoever. I only want the fight, and he was upset with me. He's like, oh, I don't know why you like them. What's not to like? I've never seen anybody upset or unhappy while reeling in a fish.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, sheephead are a pretty decent meal, and fairly easy to clean because they don't, unlike a lot of fish, they don't have a whole lot of meat on the belly side. And so you can basically just take the back loins out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's actually a pretty decent fish to eat if you get, some of the, I personally probably wouldn't eat one that's like 40 pounds, but the ones that are in that the ones that are in that, like, that 15 to 20-inch range, that's a good eating fish.
Well, a couple things. I agree with you. I've had them before. I don't really care what you bread and deep fry. It's going to be pretty good. And listen, if like anything else, my old tackle shop, we used to do fish fries just when all my buddies showed up, and they all ate a lot of sheep's head that my other buddy caught and didn't tell any of them. So I ate it too. It wasn't bad. No one knew, but like I say, it's funny that people are funny. People are funny about their fish and their fishing, and I shouldn't say funny. There's a large population of fishermen that only fish to catch a fish and take it home and clean it and eat it. And God bless them. I think that's wonderful. I mean, I think to some extent we all started off that way. But I mean, I fish every day, so I wouldn't keep fish every day. My family, no one's saying, Matt, come on, you got to bring us a fish dinner. I mean, all my buddies would say it if I went and caught it, cleaned it, and delivered it to them. But I'm not Uber. I'm not doing that. I mean, so I don't worry about any of that stuff. But if that's people's thing, God bless you. I love it. Take whatever they say you can take.
But I think this brings us a little bit full circle in the conversation because there are many people out there that walleye is their choice. And so whether you take them during spring or not is not up to me and go by the regulation in your area. But we did start out by talking about walleye, and you had talked about going out to your favorite waterway and looking towards these areas where these fish are going to be staging. You'd mentioned that they were not yet, and that kills me. Oh, we're so close, right?
Oh, I know.
But what do you do at that point? So I understand set up on these different areas, look for them, right? Use your graphs and stuff. You mentioned that, but like, what are you putting at the end of your line, or how else are you targeting these fish?
It's funny. So just last week on my channel, I said, and to be perfectly so, it's funny. My fishing background is fairly diverse. I was a fishing guide and a charter captain on Lake Ontario and the tributaries for all of the cold water species since I was a kid, since I was in my early 20s. I grew up on the lake I live on now, and so I spent my whole young life with my grandparents in the Thousand Islands, in upstate New York, and so bass fishing, smallmouth bass fishing, walleye fishing, that's as much in my blood as trout and salmon. Damn it, I got off. I tried to. What was I using? See, my wife's right there. She's sitting on the couch listening, and when I forget where I am, like when the beagle runs the rabbit and he goes around in a circle, and then all of a sudden I'm over here. So this is me. Like the rabbit's down here, everybody else is over here. I'm over here. So,
well, I appreciate it too because I like the story so much. I also forgot the question.
But you asked me what I do. What was I doing in my lake? Because this is all brand new. I can't stress enough that I would never normally be in my boat in my lake doing this time of year. And so I told myself that I'm going to be smart and I'm going to troll, which I don't do a ton of anymore, and certainly not for walleyes. I'm going to troll until I find them, and then I'm gonna beat them up with rod in hand and jig them. Theoretically, that's been wonderful so far. I've been back in the water since Monday. I've caught fish every day, but I haven't found them. They've been very sporadic and random, and I'm running. So my program first light in front of those creek mouths is like from 5 to 8 feet deep, and we're running just shallow diving stick baits, stretching them back anywhere from 75 to 125 feet, putting them on planer boards, getting them out away from the boat, covering water, and trying to find them. And all the time, I'm also searching with forward-facing sonar as I'm trolling, and I've got my side imaging all the way out as far as it'll go, just looking to see any of, because again, theoretically, when they show up, they're going to show up in mass. Like I'm trolling through the areas that in another couple of weeks is where the DEC will put the nets out to collect the fish to go and take into the hatchery, So I got to be right there. And I would think that at some point I'm going to show up in the morning and they're just going to be everywhere. I'm just waiting for that morning, because they all go there naturally. Like the creek will, when the season's closed, the creek will be so thick with them you could walk across them. I mean, I picked one up out of the water one day when my daughter was just a little girl, and she thought I was God. I just reached in the water and up come a walleye sitting in my hand. And she goes, I was like, okay, but so I'm assuming that one of these mornings it's just going to get filthy with them, but I keep looking and I haven't found him yet. But I haven't went out venturing. I'm still in that same general area. If I was going to go venturing, I would probably put the trolling rods away and go out and start picking apart pre-existing spots. But it's kind of a learning curve, and I'm doing it with the guys on the channel, or the people on the channel, because I'm not, for all the fishing experience I have, I've never done this before, so it's new, and I'm looking for them and trying to figure it out as I go. But which is wonderful. That's why we all fish. I mean, it's that constant puzzle, right? I mean, it's that every morning is different, and you're a hero yesterday, you're a zero today, and vice versa. It can go either way quickly. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's happening around us a little bit because we haven't had a whole lot. Well, we don't have any snowpack really to speak of. And we haven't had a whole lot of precipitation to speak of either. So there's a lot of boats that have been out in the rivers, and they've had a decent bite like here and there, but those are all resident fish. And the run is going to be either really short and intense, or it's going to just be drawn out and kind of just be little trickles in and then go back out, and then some more will get ready and come in and come back out, and we won't have that big push like we normally do because we don't have the current. And so that's what we're waiting for, is that current.
So you're talking about rivers that are dumping into what, Lake Michigan?
Yeah, so we have so for us it would be rivers dumping into Lake Michigan and the Winnebago system, and then the Wisconsin River also has, like, that goes down to a different drainage. But
so those fish are living in Winnebago and then going up into the tributaries of it to spawn.
Yep.
And you can fish them that time of year?
Yep.
Or your season's closed? What, do you have a closed season?
Nope.
No. So you can fish walleye 12 months of the year.
Yep.
Nice.
It is kind of nice. It's weird to travel because then you're like, oh, what can I fish for now? But we're not huge predator fishermen anyways. We do on occasion, we're multi-species, but we're primarily panfish anglers. We like to leave them alone during the spawn. So anything prior to, I don't know, second week in June, probably for us. We just kind of leave panfish alone, and then
Oh,
we like
okay.
that post spawn. That's a bite that a lot of people find pretty tough because spawn is fairly easy, but that's one of our favorite bites is post spawn because they're pretty aggressive when you do find them, and it's a lot of casting and a lot of moving around. But midsummer patterns for us is a lot of trolling. So when you're talking about trolling, we don't use planer boards. We each do straight line off the back of the boat, and we just troll around for crappies and bluegills, and it's really fun.
What are you trolling for them?
Well, it ranges from anywhere between a 3.5-inch swim bait to a 1.5-inch whatever. It could be a little twisty tail or some kind of bug plastic or whatever, and we'll troll anything between, I don't know, like a 32nd to an 1/8 ounce, just depending on how deep the water is. Like
And just
earlier,
flatlining it?
yep,
Really?
yeah, we'll troll. We have lakes that we can troll through like 4 to 5 feet of water where it's not super weedy. There's just like a lot of Cara and stuff like that carpet,
Yeah.
and we can troll through that, and the bait is far enough behind the boat that even if you do spook fish, they'll come
They
back
come
to
back
wherever they were
around.
sitting, and then your bait passes them, and they'll hit it. So that's when we're using like 32nd ounce stuff and keeping it up off the bottom. And yeah, it's
Huh.
pretty fun.
I've caught perch and sunfish trolling, but not on purpose fishing for them. That's pretty cool. I'd like to see something like that. I've also never I've always wanted to go south somewhere and spider rig for crappies. I've never done that either, or catfish too. We do a little bit of catfishing here off our dock in the river, and have caught some good ones and some carp too. That European carp style fishing is big up here.
Oh,
And it's funny. They call it European. All you're doing is fishing a slip weight packed with sticky oatmeal on it. I mean, let's call it what it is. And then you put something else fruity on the end, and you stick it on there, and you lob the whole thing out. But we've caught some. It's funny. I when I was in the Army and everybody said, "Where are you from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm from New York." "Oh, city boy, right?" I couldn't be any farther from a city boy. And I say this all the time. I'll put my state up against anybody in the country for what we have as far as fishing and in this state, and we're blessed. Like I was saying, even my county alone, you could theoretically. I mean, there's multiple world-class records set within our county limits out on Lake Ontario. I've seen brown trout to 30 pounds, cohos to 30 pounds, kings over 40. Like that's just out there in the cold water fishery. But you can go a little farther north. We have excellent big water walleyes plus what we have. And that's not talking about smallmouth and all that other stuff. So we have it. It's what do they call it? Something of riches. We have so much. We're fortunate. We're so fortunate, but there's always something more you want to do. I would love to go down south and crappie fish like that and find those big crappies, and although you must see like Chris and Donnie O from the JT guys up in Rainy Lake, they're catching those big giant crappies through the ice. That's something I would like to do.
Yeah, that's a fun time up there. I've been able to fish that before. I've never been able to fish it with Donnie. That's something that's on our bucket list. But
I wanted to go riding that Sherpa with him this winter.
Yeah,
that thing looked cool.
It does. Cool, yeah. It does look awesome. But you guys out on the East Coast, you guys have a lot of good crappie fishing that doesn't ever get talked about. And once in a while, we'll touch on it. We want to get out your way and fish. We know we have a few friends out there that are crappie fishermen, kind of in the circle, and And I think there's some untapped pan fishing that goes on out there because you don't hear much about it. You know, I think there's a lot of focus on, like you say, the cold water species,
Sure,
inland
sure,
and out
sure.
water, and then walleyes. You know, so I think you might have to
Well, I
you
mean,
might have to get some tips from us. We'll show you how to troll some panfish sometime.
I would love to. I would love to. And you're right about that. And for us around here, perch fishing's a religion, all through the upper Midwest, and we're no different. And we have excellent perch fishing. And there are some spots I can think of a couple lakes. See, it's funny. I never chased crappies in the open water. It was only through the ice. And a couple of these different lakes, but they lived there then. They must live there the rest of the time. And
Yeah.
so I just don't. I just never put enough time into it because I got bit when I was. I grew up stream trout fishing until I caught my first steelhead in high school, and it really was. It's a drug. I mean, it's an addiction. It was like I stopped. I completely stopped stream trout fishing for 10, 12-inch trout and went and everything changed. And even when I left for the Army and went out west, I still salmon and steelhead fished out there. Came back and I got a job on a charter boat, and the rest was, 15 years later, it was I had run drift boats and charter boats and it was just all chasing those big fish. It gets in your blood, and now I've kind of weaned myself off of that, and I'm back to the warm water species, which is nice because you get to relearn something, and it's all new again.
Yeah.
It's fun.
That is really interesting. Something that we don't talk about much in the Midwest is charter boats. So like big water fishing, big fish, or I mean, it's because we have guides and stuff, but that's a totally different world. And so, when people talk about or youth talk about, oh, I'm going to grow up and be a fisherman, and we talk about lots of different ways to enter the field. Maybe that is engineering with baits, maybe that's something else. But wow, charter fishing is something that we don't often get to talk about here in the Midwest.
How far are you guys from Lake Michigan?
Oh, we're only about an hour. So there is some charters that run. One of our friends, Pat Calmerton, he runs charters out of Sheboygan, I think.
Sheboygan, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's some of that. But what Emily's talking about is Midwest as a whole. Like regionally we have a little bit, but it's as far as like Midwest fishing, you don't think like when somebody tells me, "Oh, Minnesota," I don't instantly think Lake Superior, or somebody says Wisconsin, I don't instantly think Lake Michigan. I'm thinking like, Minnesota. I'm thinking like maybe Bemidji or Mille Lacs or something like that, where you're fishing walleyes, or like Wisconsin. I'm thinking Winnebago or maybe some of the driftless area for stream trout. So. Yeah, charters is kind of a funny thing that I think more people should do. It seems like a good time, and that's another thing on our list that we got to get out and do.
Yeah, the Great Lakes is a the Great Lakes. It's like nothing else. I mean, it really is, and it gets you. And that water is a different color. It's everything about it, but we also don't have the abundance of water that say Wisconsin and Minnesota have. Certainly not the size of the bodies of water that you guys have within your boundaries. Our biggest lake we share, and that's Lake Ontario. But like I say, my lake's the biggest lake in the system, and it's just it's about this long, it's a rectangle, and it is a big body of water, but it's not like rainy and those systems that are sprawled out and 1,000 miles of shoreline or something crazy like that. It would be nice though. I mean, it's funny for me, that would be cool because I would like the solitude of it. Most mornings when I'm fishing, I can see the highway down at the other end of the lake, so it's not like you're out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you're still out there, but I would like some of that backwoods feel. And you mentioned it earlier in your intro for ice fishing. Like you guys have a lot of resorts on all of these lakes, I assume, right?
Wisconsin, not so much. We have a bunch of some of the bigger lakes have some good resorts on them. Minnesota is probably more resorty than Wisconsin. I think
Because
overall Wisconsin has, by Wisconsin's definition of what a lake is, has more bodies of water that are constituted as a lake, but they're not super huge. Like we have a lot of stuff between that, 10 and 500 acres, where Minnesota has like numerous big bodies of water.
okay,
They have a lot more resorts. Not saying that Wisconsin doesn't have resorts. Like there's some really good places that that are awesome to stay at. We've been to a few. But yeah.
because we don't really have that here. Like
Okay.
that's not like I always think of that movie Uncle Buck. When he goes up to the North Woods and he goes to the resort and they rent the boat and go fishing and stuff. But like we don't. It's our lake is residential. I mean, very few of the places are even seasonal camps anymore. They're all big homes. And I've always wanted. I haven't made it out west yet. I've driven through your state and through Minnesota, but I've never went out there to go fishing. And hopefully this year we change that. But I really look forward to some of that and seeing the sights and sounds. I mean, I'm as a kid I grew up watching In Fisherman, and that's all you ever heard of was what they were doing out there. And I was always like, man, I can't wait I want to go out there and do that. Yes, we have great fishing here, but that just seems like Donnie, for instance, him and Chris, they're on some pretty remote stuff, like I don't have anything like that here. So I'm curious to be able to do a little bit of both. It's going to be interesting.
That's fun.
That is fun. Gosh, and if anybody here is interested in a trip with Donnie at this point, look up Rainy Lake Remote, and I think he books up because the Sherpa is pretty awesome draw. But just in case you're wondering about that, check that out for sure. But while we're talking about cool names and stuff, I have to ask, how did you come up with your name, the Awakening Angler?
That's a very long. I shouldn't say that. It's a long story. I wrote a book. I wrote my first book 4 years ago, and I published it. And my editor, at the end of the process, we were trying to come up with the correct verbiage for the title, and we were kind of having a round robin. Me, there was the publisher, and my editor, my wife, and I, and it's really quick synopsis of my book is it's a retired soldier. He gets out of the military here in New York, and he's not quite sure what he's going to do. And so he follows the sun until he can't follow it anymore. And he's got a truck full of fishing stuff, and he fishes his way across the country. And he ends up steelhead fishing way up in northern British Columbia. And the book is his journey, let's call it. And there is a spiritual nature to it. Not religious, but there is an awakening. He comes to an awakening in his life where he starts to reprioritize things. And personally, for me, I came from the guide background, in the charter captain background. I got out of the military when I was 22, and by 23, I had my license. And I spent my whole young life doing that to the point where by the time I sold everything and said I was all done, I swore off fishing. I was never going to fish again. I didn't want anything to do with it or anybody that came along with it. I was dealing with thousands of people a year, and though most of them were wonderful, if you know any really successful guides and captains out there, they're a different breed. They one of two things. They're either obnoxious to everybody or they're just always with a smile on their face and they're just above it all. And I started going the other way where I wasn't nice because I was stressed and I was putting all that pressure of every day trying to do these things or just, you know, I didn't, if it wasn't a limit, it was a failure, you know, and that changes it for you. And you don't get excited when you see that rod smash over, you know, it's just another thing. And you're like, just get it in and get it over with quick. So we can count it towards our limit. And I don't do that anymore. I don't know how else to say that. In creating content for me, I can guide thousands. I can guide an unlimited amount of people with kindness and appreciation and joy that I still get up and go fishing every day. But most days I can't wait to get out of bed and go. It's not not like it used to be. And there's more to it than just here's how many I caught, you know, and you can break down YouTube content creators most days pretty quickly. It's, hey, look at me, I catch all these fish, I'm the best. Or it's, I want to try and show people how to do it and enjoy themselves. I'm that side of it. My wife's talking to me off screen because I guess I didn't answer the question correctly. So the
That was a good story. I liked it.
the name came from that. That's what it means to me. The Awakening Angler, I've awakened to so much more about angling than just the angling. And I like this better. and fishing's a community. We're all here 2,000 miles apart because we're fishermen. That's what we do. It's in us, you know, and I love so many things about fishing. And one of it is those fish don't care. They have no idea who's on the other side, who you are, what you got, what you don't have. None of that matters. And so I love fishing because it truly is universal. Anybody can do it. It's as inclusive a sport as any there is. And we can all take it to extreme levels, but you don't have to enjoy it. And sometimes now when I'm creating the content, it's with the thought in mind of if you didn't have somebody in your life to show or take or teach you these things, then how would you do it? You know? And if you didn't get shown those things, then you might not even know that you had a likeness for it, you know? So if we just take a few minutes and share what we know, then I'm not threatened by that. I want that, you know, I want to see more people out there. I want to see more people enjoying themselves with a smile on their face. And I know that there is a correlation between catching and having fun. I get that. So I don't not pay any attention to that. And I'm as serious and as hardcore as you're going to find, but there's always something to learn, even when you don't succeed at it. And I enjoy that. And now the Awakening Angler goes out and I tell that same story. I awoke to the fact that there is way more than just that one fish for my day. So thank you for asking, but that's
And so for people who might be interested in also checking out your book, do you mind sharing the title of that?
it's called Catching the Drift.
That's awesome, actually.
Catching the Drift. Yeah. And it's, you know, that old saying, you catch my drift.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of along those lines, you know, and I take people along with this character. And there's some twists and turns, and it's fiction. Okay, let me start by saying it's fiction. And I get asked a lot, yeah, some of it's me, but it's fiction. It's the beauty of fiction is it doesn't have to be real. That's the beauty
Right.
of it, So, yeah, and I should have gave you. You can. I've got a Shopify store, so if you go on my social media, I have links to it. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, and in all my bios is my Shopify link, and you can go in there and get your own copy. I'll even sign it for anybody.
That's awesome.
That is cool.
I'll send you one for a jar of syrup.
Perfect. I think we can do that.
So after this conversation, I know that we are all excited to see your walleye pile in by your stream. That's going to be super fun. We're all going to be watching the adventures and everything that you have on your social media. For people who might not be following you yet, can you remind us how and where we can do that?
Yep, everything is underneath the Awakening Angler. That's my name on all 3 platforms. Like I say, the YouTube channel is the Awakening Angler, Facebook, and Instagram. And then let's see, we didn't even talk about this, which is fine. But we do a walleye derby here that I put on the opening weekend every year in May. Last year we had 1,400 participants, and this year we're shooting for double that. So that is the name of that is called Walleye Fest. So
Nice.
You can go to walleyefest.com and you can see all about it. And that's May 3rd, 4th, and 5th this year.
Cool.
Oh, wow. That's so fun.
That's in between fishing every day. That's my life is planning that. That's what I'll be doing for the next 2 months.
Nice.
Yeah, it's exciting. So yeah, last year we had a kids division for the first time ever. We had 135 kids sign up for the kids division. This year we have a women's division. I hope that we had so many couples last year fishing together, which I love to see. My wife and I fished together. She's not very good, but she's giving me the eye.
My wife beats me up.
Something? I'm going to tell you something terrible. I've been a guide my whole life. My wife holds the household record for walleye and for smallmouth. And I've done this forever. And she's got 2 bigger fish than I do.
I love it.
That's just proof that God's a woman.
Well, if you want to make it
awesome.
interesting, start doing the daily multi-species and biggest fish. You'll be surprised. Emily beats me all the time.
Oh yeah. It's funny. Her big bass. I have it's on video. It's in one of our videos from 2 years ago, and we were drifting soft shells on the edge of this drop off. And she was sitting down doing something and had her rod in the rod holder, and I'm over here and I just missed one, and I look over and I see her rod go like that. I go, honey, you got one? She goes, no, I don't. I'm like, sweetheart, you got a fish out. No, I didn't see it. All right. Just do me a favor. Just pick the rod up and reel it in. We'll just check the crab. If we need to put another one on, we'll put it back down. She goes, okay. She picks it up. She goes, oh my God, I got one. I'm like, no kidding, really?
That's
awesome.
It was 6 pounds, 2 ounces.
Oh wow!
I've ever seen in my life. I've still yet to break it. My record is 513 for me personally. This is a travesty of justice. I will not stand for it.
That's
super funny. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they shouldn't let wives fish.
Well, I have to say we're looking forward to the adventures of hopefully both of you. And we're really looking forward to your walleye tournament. That is going to be awesome. So we will check out updates on that.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Oh, thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it has been a lot of fun. And to the people at home, thank you guys for joining us as well, because that is always a lot of the fun as well.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, looking forward to seeing everyone on next week's edition of The Night Bite.
Night, everybody.